Hey guys, today in our lesson for our health class, we're going to talk about consent. It's a pretty hot topic right now, which is good. So first, can I find out what you guys know about consent, what you've heard?
No means no.
No means no, that's good.
Maybe this time.
You have to actually say yes, not just assume.
Right, no assumptions. Okay, so that's pretty good that you guys know that. That's pretty important. Okay, so I just have a cute little introductory video. We watched it when I started undergrad at Lincoln, and it's just good and informational, and I think it helps you kind of realize what consent is and just kind of in a cute way.
Only 1 in 3 Canadians fully understand what consent is. So Western, let's talk about it. Let's think about consent like a bike ride. If you wanted to go on a bike ride with someone, you'd say, hey, I'd like to go on a bike ride with you. And they'd be like, hey, I'd like to go on a bike ride with you. Boom, put on your helmet, kid, you're going on a bike ride. You might hear things like, this feels great, or keep going. These are ways you know they're enjoying the bike ride. Maybe not those ones. If they said no, then that's that. They do not want to go on a bike ride with you. You don't toss them up on a bike and say, oh come on, it'll be fun. No is no. And if they don't say anything at all, it's still a no. The absence of a yes is a no. They could say, heck yeah, or I might want to. And you put on your biker shorts, get the bike, grab the helmets, and in that time, they've decided that they don't want to and start to backpedal. And that's okay. They aren't obligated to go on that bike ride. You'll just have to bike on your own. Oh, and being dressed in bike shorts and a helmet doesn't automatically mean someone wants to ride a bike. It's quite presumptuous to think they do. Even if you happen to be in a relationship with your bike partner, you have to ask each and every time. Say your bike partner has had a couple of drinks, and we're not talking about water. They're not ready to go for a bike ride, even if they told you they are. A drunk yes is not a sober yes, and by law, you need a sober yes. Oh, and just because you bought them drinks all night, it does not entitle you to a bike ride with them. Same rules apply if they're unconscious. The conscious people can't ride bikes, and they definitely can't say yes to doing so. The number one priority is to make sure they're safe. Even if they're just sleeping, they can't say yes to a bike ride. And it can be a scary thing to wake up and find yourself on a bike. Imagine your boss telling someone, you can only work here if you bike with me to work. That's crossing the line. It would be an abuse of power for a boss or a person of influence to suggest such a thing. And just because someone wanted to go for a bike ride once, doesn't mean they'll want to every time. Maybe it was just a one bike stand. You can't say, what are you talking about? We biked last night. You're simply not entitled to another bike ride if they don't want to. Maybe your fellow cyclist is totally cool with biking on paved roads. That does not mean that they are up for extreme mountain biking. You're not going to insist that they go speeding down a mountain with you if they are only interested in paved roads. That's uncomfortable territory, and you don't want to pressure your bike partner, do you? What if Alex here told you that Taylor really wants to ride bikes with you? Does that mean you throw Taylor up on a bike and say, all right, let's start pedaling? No. The only person that could say Taylor wants to go for a bike ride is Taylor. When all is said and done, riding a bike with someone should be fun, memorable, and hey, maybe a bit sweaty. But it can only be that way when everyone involved has willingly agreed to participate. So whether it's having sex or bike riding, consent is key.
Like that? I really liked it when I was younger. I thought it was really informational. But there are two things in that I want to talk about. Okay, so first of all, when he's talking about riding a bike, he obviously means sex. So that was the thing. I hope you guys got that. But two very important topics that he spoke about in that were alcohol. And he didn't say this word, but it's quid pro quo, and I'll tell you guys what that means. I don't really know how to spell it. Is it a Q? Quid pro quo. I think it's a
UA or CO. I don't know.
Someone want to Google it? Whatever. So, I don't really know what they were, but okay, so alcohol and just like basically anything, like it can be drugs, doesn't have to be alcohol. But if a person is under the influence, their yes is not a sober yes. So you really cannot decide to have sex with somebody if they're not fully conscious. Like you said, you can't ride a bike when you're passed out. So that's just very important. So when you get older and you go to parties, definitely this is one to worry about because a lot of people kind of just assume, and an assumption is not good ever. Quid pro quo, or however you spell it, I don't know. So what that basically means is he kind of touched on this is when you're working in an environment or you have a teacher and they say like I'll give you an A or I'll give you a raise if you do this sexual favor for me, and that's like a forced consent, and that's not good because that's not you making a full decision for yourself. That's you making one maybe to get better grades, get a better job, stuff like that. That's forced consent, and that is not okay. That is still not consent. Okay, so that was the first video. Now, I want to talk about like healthy versus unhealthy relationships because he talked about how you can sometimes when people are in relationships, you can see that like they just assume that sex is okay because they're in a relationship, but that's not always the case. So like sometimes your partner may not want to have sex with you, or they had sex with you last night but they don't want to have sex with you again because they're tired or they don't feel comfortable right now, and that's fine, and like you have to realize that. But sometimes in relationships, your partner or not your partner, just a partner could kind of make the decision for you, and that's an example of an unhealthy relationship, obviously. So like things like mistrust, abuse, control, manipulation, cheating, or not cheating, manipulation, those are what falls into when your partner forces consent on you or forces sex on you. That's not good. So you need like a healthy sign or a healthy relationship where there's respect. Respect is like the most important thing in consent because you want your partner, your sexual partner, your relationship partner, whoever it may be, you want them to be comfortable during all of your sexual encounters, okay? But I also want to say that like this is a health class, we're talking about sex, but consent is like bigger than sex. It's like everything. So when you're like a little kid and like you want to hold hands with your friend Hannah, but Hannah doesn't want to hold hands with you, you don't force hand holding on Hannah. You don't do that. That's like going against consent, and that could lead to problems when you get older. So you could like do bad stuff, which is not good. It's not what we want. Okay. I have this second video. It's pretty sad, and I don't think it's inappropriate. But like, if you feel uncomfortable, just like feel free to.
And that you can't protect yourself from. You can't even admit it to yourself. I guess if your body can't protect itself, your brain tries to. There, no, here's. We went to a bar for our first date. He was handsome in a way that intrigued me but didn't intimidate me. He insisted on buying my drink, and I insisted we split it. But before I could even reach for my wallet, his plastic card was sliding across the bar. It went as well as first dates usually go. We revisited the small commonalities we had, things like family and the minor stresses of our jobs. We made a few jokes that I thought were worth a small laugh, but gave a big one instead. After I finished my first drink, he got me another one. After the second drink, he flagged down the bartender for the third. I could feel myself getting uneasy. I was 2 vodka sodas in and drinking on an empty stomach, so I told him I should call it a night. He made fun of my early curfew and asked if I drove myself, praising my knee with his thumb. I said I took an Uber, so he asked if I needed a ride home. I said no, but
Sorry,
again,
it's doing
he
that.
Start it over.
What?
Start it over maybe.
something that you can't protect yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna refresh it. I'm so sorry.
Creating the movie right now. I don't know how long it's not showing the bar.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening, so this isn't good.
You could share it with us and then we could watch it in our own time.
That's true. Okay, Apple TV locked me out. Just give me like 2 seconds.
Showed up on time and told me I would. He said he wanted to make sure that I got home safe. I remember how he shot me a toothy smile, how I trusted him. I remember how in that moment I believed him. So I said yes. As we walked to the car, I felt a pit in my stomach, though I couldn't pinpoint why. I reminded myself that he had done all the right things when it came to dating. He showed up on time, he told me I looked beautiful, he held the door. He's a nice guy, right? When we got into the car, I felt the space around me getting smaller. He put his hand on my leg, and in that moment, I realized how alone we were. I realized we were still just two strangers. When we pulled up to my house, I told him I was tired. I told him he could pull over and drop me off right there, that would be perfect. He asked if he could come in for a quick glass of water. He said he was feeling the few drinks he had, and he didn't feel like he could drive home just yet. The pit in my stomach was still there, but I told myself I was being crazy. I told myself I couldn't be responsible for a drunk driver on the road. I told myself that it was fine, that he was a nice guy. So I said yes, and I let him inside. When we got inside, I went to the kitchen to get him a glass of water. I wondered if my roommate was home. I wondered how long he would stay. He took a sip of water and then wandered towards my room without invitation, his barely touched water glass sitting on the table. When he got to my room, he touched the books on my shelf, skimming their back covers. He turned a picture of my sister and I over in his hands, and then he moved towards me. At first, I let him kiss me. I let his tongue part my lips and his hand rest on the small of my back. I told myself I would kiss him back for a few seconds. I told myself after he kissed me, after he was done, he would leave. Then his kisses got harder. His hands moved more quickly. Suddenly, my spine was hitting the door frame. Suddenly, he was being too rough, and as I tried to pull back, he pulled me towards him.
So we're gonna stop there, because obviously it was getting a little gross. But, what is something that you guys, like, noticed about that? Like, what are some key factors that happened in that video?
She showed signs. She never actually said yes, and she just looked disgusted during the whole thing.
Alcohol was involved, and definitely, like, he was buying her drinks, so a lot of times girls feel pressured in any way to, like, do something for a boy if they bought them drinks. So that's another thing that alcohol has to do, so I just want to stress to be careful with alcohol. But yeah, body language is a huge thing. She looked very uncomfortable the whole time. And, like, it sucks that that's not enough sometimes for, like, a boy or a woman to kind of figure that out when, like, someone's uncomfortable, but that's just the way it is. So, kind of in this, it's a good example of how it can be hard to say no sometimes just because you don't want to be rude. They bought alcohol for you, they helped you in some way, they took you home, they did all the right things, she said, but, like, I just want you guys to, like, feel confident in, like, the fact that you can say no, and, like, no matter what they did, no matter how nice they are, how sweet, how pretty, you can say no. You don't have to do anything. Okay, so Webster's Dictionary defines consent as permission for something to happen or agreement to do something. So notice that it doesn't say anything sexual, but most of the time when you're talking about consent, you're talking about sex. Okay, but this is what I want you guys to do today. So get into groups of 3 or 5 people, and I want you to like make a little video on your iPads since you all have iPads. Okay, and then so the example doesn't have to be a sexual example of consent. So, like, basically what I just want to make sure that you guys know what consent is. So, like the example I gave before about holding Hannah's hand, even though she didn't want to hold your hand, like that's an example. So kind of do something like that. I want it to be a real life example, so something that could actually happen in real life, not like your alien space boyfriend tried to kiss you, like don't weird stuff like that, don't do that. And I want it to be 2 to 3 minutes long, but I'm not too worried about the length. The length. Okay, so if you guys could get into your groups, and then we will watch videos for the remainder of this class, and then whatever we don't finish today, we'll watch tomorrow. Are there any questions at all for consent? No? Alright, so get in your groups. We'll watch them. Why are we in it for video?